In early access, I had theory crafted that the Plague drones with Death's Heads would be a pretty good unit against Slaanesh. Slaanesh lacks flying tools in general, and these seemed like a pretty potent flying shooting unit. I thought they'd be pretty good. Unfortunately, they didn't have enough ammunition, and they costed too much. Now, though, in the 1.1 update, both of those issues have been addressed, so today, Wilson from Discord is going to be taking them against Slaanesh, one unit in reserve, very tasteful. In his starting army, he's got an Exalted Great Unclean one, Soul Grinder of Nurgle, one Exalted Plague Bearer, two regular Plague Bearers, and four Nurglings. Two more Exalted Plague Bearers in reserve, along with the Death's Heads, two Beasts of Nurgle, Occultist, two more Plague Bearers, two Furies, and the final Nurgling for the forces of Slaanesh, the Exalted Keeper of Secrets, Heartseekers, Exalted Demonettes, Spawn of Slaanesh, Hellstriders, two Marauders with Spears, and two Sword Marauders, if you can call them swords. Soul Grinder of Slaanesh in reserve, very good here. Almost might take two, to be honest. Cultists of Slaanesh also in reserve, some more Seekers, two Demonettes, three Hellstriders, two Hellscourge Infantry Marauders, and one more Sword Marauder. We're going to be on Silver Spire map. Means we're definitely going to be fighting in some confined spaces. It could limit Slaanesh's ability to flank somewhat, but at the same time, still offer them plenty of opportunities for AoE magic damage. Looks like Lore of Slaanesh here, so there's no Pit of Shades, which would definitely be pretty solid on this map. In place of, where you would take Penumbral Pendulum before, I think most players should be taking Pit of Shades. Obviously, Nikari's also very good in this matchup. Nikari probably, honestly, is the best pick in terms of Lord, but if I was going to go with an Exalted Keeper of Secrets, I'd probably go Shadows. I don't know. It's tough to say exactly what you should take for Lord choice in this matchup from Slaanesh's perspective. The reason I say Nikari's the best is just because of the conditional self-healing, which, don't get me wrong, Exalted Keeper of Secrets also has this weird additional self-healing, but it's not as good as Nikari's. So, think of that what you will. But let's see how it goes here. The Plague drone's obviously going to be deployed late, and there's not Furies really for Slaanesh here. That's really their only flying tool to begin with, right? So in most matchups, if you expect your opponent to take any flying shooting at all, or just, flying units in general, it generally benefits you to take Furies as Slaanesh. I'm thinking through, even in Horn, which is the matchup where I think most of the other demon factions probably shouldn't take Furies, just because they don't trade well versus a lot of Horn units. I do make an exception for the Slaanesh Furies because they have armor-piercing damage, but anyway, this sickly Soul Grinder making his way forward, blasting his putrid pus across the field. Going to be making some solid contact, hopefully. Let's see. Nope, clean misses all the way around. Those Exalted Demonettes just putting them on skates, so to speak. Going all over the place, trying to dodge those shots. More shots raining in here at the blob of Marauders. Makes some okay contact. Nothing too insane yet. The thing about Slaanesh on this map is they can deploy quickly enough, get over and start harassing your home field objective. Pretty much whoever you're playing, especially Nurgle and Cathay, but in general they can just kind of forward pressure well enough to draw a few units away. That means on this main objective, they should have a slight force advantage. But the Plague drones have now been summoned up in the sky. Oh yeah, looking absolutely fantastic. Going to be eating their Death's Heads. The Keeper of Secrets does have a missile block chance. You can see he's raising his shield there to try and shrug off some of that damage. And I haven't tested. I'm pretty sure that Death's Heads count as small arms fire because they don't have an explosive component. So I'm pretty sure they're subject to missile block chance, but I actually have not tested to 100% verify. I'm going to work under that assumption, though. But even still, they shouldn't be subject to missile block in the rear arc. That being said, they're not making a ton of contact, but so far, let's see, they've used up close to half of their ammunition, and they've paid for about half of their value. So it seems like if you use their ammunition on the appropriate targets, you can probably get your value back. Exalted Keeper Secret's going to be calling down some slicing shards, trying to cut through those Plague Bears there. Those Nurglings almost done as well. Not the most efficient placement. I mean, obviously he would have got a lot of friendly fire if he placed it over his own troops, so just a little bit of a weird situation to try and use it. Soul Grinder, though, going to get rear charged here by the Keeper of Secrets. That's not good. And Heart Seekers in a surround. This is going to be really, really bad for this poor Soul Grinder. We get torn to shreds pretty quickly. Marauders of Slaanesh on Nurglings should go okay for the Marauders, but it's not going to be anything too crazy. This big blob fight's not going great for Nurgle, but the Exalted Great Unclean One is pretty much untouched, even though all of its support units are very quickly getting crumbled away. Checking back in with the Death's Heads. They're using up their final volleys now, as the Soul Grinder breathes its last breaths. I'm not sure that thing is even breathing, let's be honest, but you know what I mean. Quickly returning to the realm of chaos, while the Death's Heads use their final bit of ammunition. Exalted Keeper of Secrets finishes the Soul Grinder and now is going to take the charge. In melee combat, the Plague Drones have okay combat stats, only 30 attack though versus 60 defense of the Exalted Keeper. They're not really going to be making much contact at all, except in a surround. Some of them, if they get in the rear and side arc, might be able to get some hits to bypass at least a portion of the melee defense. I don't remember exactly the proportions for side and rear. It is different for side and rear specifically, but more Hellstriders charging in. And Slaanesh spawn doing a great job holding the objective at this point. Slaanesh is definitely in control of the center just about, and of course their home objective as well. Nurgle has been able to hold with the Exalted Plague Bearers. It's quite a bit of a spend, and this is what I mean. Just the threat of these Hellstriders over on this side is enough to draw away resources. I mean, maybe Nurglings would arguably be enough to hold them, but checking back in with the Death's Heads, actually have been able to get the work done against the Exalted Keeper Secrets. I didn't see if there's any debuffs or anything. I don't think. I mean, I don't remember exactly the range on this guy's debuffs. Doesn't look like he does have the Blight Swarm, so I don't know if he used it there. Probably not, but anyway. Exalted Keeper charging into the Nurglings, trying to force their leadership down to banishment level so that it can get some more replenishment. But now there's the Blight Swarm being used. With the melee defense down to only 40, the Plague Drones have much better chance of making good contact, even if it's still not amazing in a surround with that good, decent weapon strength. 95 weapon strength, definitely pretty solid. Armor piercing damage doesn't really matter too much here. Just the overall weapon damage being pretty good is enough. Maybe. We'll see. Yeah, Keeper of Secrets hanging on quite well and actually starting to win against those Plague Drones. So it's still a tough engagement. I mean, they're still not incredible in melee without support buffs. Let's see, Nurgle still hanging on, even though it looks like Slaanesh has a pretty sizable numbers advantage. Fortunately, we don't get to see the damage values or other stuff like that. Really would hope to see those UI improvements in the future. I am planning a video about my top... I can't decide if I'm going to do top domination specific improvements or just top UI improvements in general. I could probably do both, honestly. There is some overlap because part of what I want improved for domination is UI, like being able to get a breakdown of the captures, being able to see the army damage value and the reinforcements on replays, and as a caster. Anyway, Plague Drones are going to get finished off there, but not before they actually did not finish off the Keeper of Secrets, was able to reposition all the way over onto the other side, but in terms of damage value, they definitely got the work done they needed to. I mean, this thing is, what, like 3,000 gold, potentially? Potentially a little bit less, but still, yeah, like 1,500 gold flying shooting unit definitely pays for itself in that situation. Cultist of Slaanesh getting pounded out by the Exalted Great Unclean One, who, in this matchup, where he doesn't have to worry at all about getting shot up, can just sit and drain away all the squishy Slaanesh troops. Relatively low HP in comparison. Nice red-crested Marauders here, fighting in the big surround. The Beast of Nurgle also has its own regeneration, so Fleshy Abundance can go onto the Exalted Great Unclean One to heal it back up to strength. But here comes the anti-large Keeper of Secrets. Blight Swarm also gets popped once again. And the nice thing about the Death's Heads Plague Drones actually dying completely, as nice thing with demons is you can resummon them in relatively quickly. You can get the funds to do so. Looks like the Soul Grinder was just summoned in, so still quite a bit of tickets left, though, for Nurgle. He could definitely bring them back in immediately. Or I guess maybe you have to wait for them to regenerate, obviously. But Keeper of Secrets goes down to the Exalted Great Unclean One anyway. That does force the Exalted Demonettes into disintegration, banishment. And the Soul Grinder also just kind of wet noodling right now. The Beast of Nurgle should trade pretty well here, but the 2v1 with the Beast of Nurgle and the Exalted Great and Clean One should go good for the Sick Boys. Meanwhile, Exalted Plague Bears holding totally firm against Secrets of Slaanesh. That's pretty hopeless. Engagement there, and suddenly the Slaanesh forces all just run out of steam and rout pretty much at the same time. So there you go. Marauders run for the hills. Demon units start to crumble away. Turn to the Shadow Realms, realm of pleasure, so to speak, in this specific case. Anyway, thought this was a pretty fun one. At this point, Nurgle's got a pretty good advantage, but they still have to hold against the counter push, right? There is plenty of time left, and we've got some more Demonettes running onto the field. We've got these Hellstriders still chilling over here. More Marauders coming in as well. The loss of the Keeper of Secrets, though, is pretty extreme, and Death's Heads are coming back around. They didn't hear no bell. Well, they did hear a bell, but a different sort of bell. A very inviting, sort of friendly bell that has Nurglings kicking around in it, summoning them back to the battlefield. And now they're here to dish out some pain to this Soul Grinder. Moves in. Gives the Slaanesh, or sorry, the Nurgle cultist a bath there by launching him into the pond repeatedly. Definitely could use it, no question about that. Although I would imagine this entire pool will need to be drained and refilled with fresh water because there's a bunch of dead Marauders, and this guy's been, you know, using it as his own personal stomping puddle. So anyway, yeah, I can imagine Orion's just sitting up there in the trees in the distance like, really? Really? Who knows? Maybe the Nurgle fertilizer is pretty good. Probably actually better than what you would want to make your garden grow completely out of control, right? Anyway, Death's Head's continuing to throw in there. You can see that the Soul Grinder actually wasn't taking that many hits from the Exalted Great and Clean One. Maybe a couple from the Beast of Nurgle, but most of that damage is coming from Plague Drones. If we check back in on their value, yeah, they have paid for themselves twice already. And the rest after this is just icing on the cake. So seems like these guys are back in this matchup to go after high-value targets. Soul Grinders, Nikari, stuff like this is very likely something that you will see in this matchup. So I do think one of the Plague Drones, Death's Heads, I do think is worth it here, definitely. On the flip side for Slaanesh, of course, like I said, you want some Furies, at least 2, maybe 4. I don't know in this matchup if 4 is really justifiable because they don't do a lot else for you except for help try and screen the air. Like they're, in terms of Nurgle's infantry and other units, Furies aren't really going to contribute much just because they have so much HP in general, and they're not really heavily armored, so AP doesn't apply. It's not super applicable, right? It doesn't apply in that many situations, but at least 2 Furies maybe. Maybe if you're really, really scared of multiple Death's Heads, you go with 4. But regardless, hopefully Slaanesh gets some more flying tools in future updates. Maybe some missile units. Marauder Horsemen with missiles would be definitely very nice in a situation like this. But Spawn piling in. Nurgle still is barely taking the lead on points. And the Spawn and all the Demonettes, what are they? Marauders, these Spear Marauders too, and the other Demonettes, if they piled in, yeah, the forces of Slaanesh have amassed enough capture power to start capping this back just about. But here come the Plague Bearers. It's taken them a while. It's taken them slightly less time than it would have before, 1.1, but here they are now in the capture box. Should be providing some stabilization. Yep, you can see it ticking back down in favor of Nurgle. Plague Drones used up their ammunitions. They're now fighting side by side with their portly patron, the Exalted Great and Clean One. And man, I love the model of the Plague Drones. So this one has sort of a flying plague cavalry monster thing shooting also. It's just a lot going on, to be honest, and they are very cool. Sound effects are also fantastic. There it is, folks. Still just teetering on the edge. It is going to be a very, very close game at the end of the day, but Nurgle has just managed to take control. Like, still, like, right now, just in the process of taking control, literally passed in the last second. Now should be able to hold the advantage. More Nurgle forces could be deployed in here. A little bit of extra supply. And yeah, all these extra Nurglings, more Exalted Plague Bears coming up here. And I don't think Slaanesh can amass enough value quickly enough. Marauders can get in faster, certainly. But they won't be able to provide that nice sustainability. And because Nurgle already has that local advantage, they'd have to outdo them, right? Outnumber them in terms of capture weight, so we'll keep it in cinematic cam as the Fertilizer Bros continue fighting on here, sending these Hedonites packing back to wherever they came from. To be honest, this is Athaloran, right? So who knows, they might have been brought here by some foul elven trickery. You never trust elves, to be honest. Anyway. The Plague Drones just forward keeping the Marauders, keeping them away from the objective. And notice one thing, this is something that's always been true of Plague Drones, but you notice how some of these Slaanesh Marauders like go for an absolute ride. What this means is if you're fighting Plague Drones on the walls or near a cliff, some of the unit models will get thrown off of the wall and just one-shotted straight up. So don't ever fight Plague Drones, or even Romp Flies for that matter, on the walls. Fight them on the ground. Otherwise, you lose all of your unit without them doing any damage in return. Like, they can even beat, like, Chosen Halberds on the walls. Ask me how I know. Anyway, big thanks to Wilson for sending that one in. And yeah, in terms of damage value, 5,000 plus damage value on the Exalted Great Unclean One. Just fought on that center objective the whole time. Drained squishy Slaanesh troops. Of course, the other power player, 4,271 value, 17,000, almost 18,000 damage dealt. Plague Drones with the Death's Heads, definitely very good. I have to give these guys another look in this matchup, potentially against Khorne, although it's a little bit riskier there with flying Exalted Bloodthirster being probably a relatively common pick. Kislev maybe, as long as you don't get countershot. They don't really have any flying tools either, so if you can occupy their missile units, these guys could get some good work in there against, like, a Elemental Bear or something. Not really sure. I need to try out more use cases for myself and see how it goes. But the rest of the army, most things probably don't perform, to be honest. I mean, Beast of Nurgle ends up paying for itself, which is nice. The other one gets pretty close. Soul Grinder also just about pays for itself. Most of the rest is just to provide capture weight. Some of the Nurglings do pretty well. One of the Plague Bearers also does pretty well. 3,000 damage value on the Exalted Keeper of Secrets. So even with getting absolutely wrecked by the Plague Drones, just about paid for himself. The Heart Seekers can be insanely strong, very cost effective if used correctly, but super squishy. I think they were maybe only summoned once here. I'd have to go back and double check. I know the Exalted Demonettes were definitely summoned twice, so that's not exactly cost effective. But still, I know some of you guys like to see the damage values anyway, so I figured I would show them off to you. Soul Grinder, again, 2,000 damage value, pretty decent stuff. Anyway, that's all for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you learned something. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.